Remember being 8 years old, strapping on a backpack, climbing on the bed, and thinking, if I jump hard enough, the jets will kick in. They did not. Instead, you discovered gravity, face first. Pop culture promised us jetpacks would replace cars by now. No traffic, no potholes, no honking uncles in scooters. Just pure sky freedom. Fast forward to 2025. Instead of jetpacks, what do we have? Scooters that catch fire, e-bikes that beep like dying robots, and potholes that are evolving into swimming pools. So, where are the jetpacks we were promised? Why don't we have jetpacks yet? Buck Rogers in the 1920s, jetpack. James Bond in Thunderball, jetpack. Even the Jetsons promised your mom would fly to Space Costco in one. And then Marvel showed up. Tony Stark builds an AI-powered jetpack suit in his garage, while the rest of us can't even set up our Wi-Fi router. Thanks, Tony. Pop culture made jetpacks feel inevitable, as if one day the DMV would say, "Here's your driver's license," and "Here's your rocket spine permit." Spoiler, the DMV did not. Our story begins in the 1960s, when the world was convinced that by 2000, we'd all be living like the Jetsons. Scientists, engineers, and very brave test pilots were determined to make it happen. Meet the Bell rocket belt, humanity's first real attempt at a jetpack. It could fly for a whopping 21 seconds. 21 seconds, folks. That's barely enough time to get from your car to the Walmart entrance, let alone revolutionize transportation. You could barely finish saying, "Look, Ma, I'm flat," before crashing back to Earth like a disappointed eagle. The fundamental problem hasn't changed since the 1960s. Energy density. You need an enormous amount of power to lift a human being, and that power has to come from somewhere. Think of it this way. Your car's gas tank gets you hundreds of miles. A jetpack's fuel tank gets you... well, you could probably walk farther in the time it takes to fuel up. But that didn't stop people from trying. Oh no. The 1970s through 1990s were basically the hold my beer and watch this era of jetpack development. Spoiler alert, most of them learned to fly the same way the Wright brothers learned to fly, through a series of increasingly creative crashes. But the crashes weren't the only problem. There was something even more dangerous lurking in the shadows of jetpack development. The military was watching. The year was 1961. The Cold War was heating up, and both the Americans and Soviets were thinking the same thing. You know what would make our soldiers even more effective? The ability to fly around like rocket-powered ninjas. The US military threw serious money at jetpack development. We're talking millions of dollars in 1960s money, which is like a lot more money today. I'm not good at math, but trust me, it was expensive. The military applications seemed obvious. Imagine soldiers who could fly over enemy lines, land behind enemy positions, complete missions, and fly out. It was the stuff of science fiction becoming military reality. The Army tested it, and when funds dried up, they said, "Cool invention, but instead of a $200,000 flying backpack that kills soldiers after 20 seconds, how about we buy helicopters?" And just like that, jetpacks were retired to the same shelf as hoverboards and Blockbuster. Airplanes cheat with wings. Helicopters cheat with rotors. They're efficient. Jetpacks? No cheating. Just pure brute force. Basically strapping a volcano to your back and hoping for the best. But Bell Rocket did try, right? Yes, of course. 21 seconds. That was the Bell Rocket Belt's flight time. Do you know what you can accomplish in 21 seconds? You can microwave a Hot Pocket. Badly. You can explain to your spouse why you forgot their birthday. Unsuccessfully. You can make it exactly halfway across a football field before plummeting like a chrome-plated meteor. But surely, you're thinking, they just needed bigger fuel tanks, right? Wrong. Oh, so beautifully, catastrophically wrong. See, jetpacks face what engineers call the tyranny of the rocket equation, which sounds like a rejected Marvel villain, but is actually pure mathematical evil. Here's the problem. You want more flight time? Add fuel. Add fuel, now you're heavier. Heavier, you need even more fuel. Congratulations, you've entered the infinite doom loop of physics. It's like trying to lose weight by buying more cake or, pizza. Maybe I like Italian pizza. The Bell rocket belt guzzled hydrogen peroxide faster than my Uncle Jerry guzzles beer at family reunions. We're talking nearly 5 gallons gone in just 21 seconds. At that rate, a crosstown commute wouldn't just need a fuel truck, it would need NASA's budget. But wait, it gets worse. Remember that hydrogen peroxide? It's not the gentle stuff you dab on cuts. This was 90% concentrated rocket fuel, the kind that turns steel into smoke if you handle it wrong. One tiny malfunction, and you're not flying to work, you're auditioning as a human firework. And while it looked spectacular, the dangers were everywhere. Pilots had to fight gravity, unstable fuel, and the kind of hot steam blast that could scorch you before you had time to say, "Look, Ma." Meet Harold Graham, Bell's test pilot and the man with maybe the world's most terrifying job title, Professional Human Rocket. In 1961, he pulled off the very first public rocket belt flight in front of the U.S. Army and a live audience. He didn't crash and burn, but make no mistake, every takeoff was basically a coin toss with gravity. Harold survived, and thankfully without the Roman candle ending, but he became jetpacking's first cautionary tale. Because while the machine worked, it was terrifyingly impractical. But did that stop the program? Of course not. This was America in the space race, where dangerous and dumb wasn't a deal-breaker, it was practically a sales pitch. Let's say you get a working jetpack. Amazing! Now, how do you land? Cars have airbags, planes have landing gear, parachutes exist. Jetpacks? You have ankles. That's it. You misjudge by half a meter, and boom, you're in a YouTube fail compilation titled, "Guy Learns Gravity the Hard Way." Now imagine rush hour. Thousands of people blasting through the sky with rockets strapped to their butts. The skyline becomes Call of Duty Traffic Edition. Oh, and add birds, because you will lose to birds. But wait, what if I told you that despite all this, people kept trying anyway? Fast forward to today, and guess what? People are still obsessed with jetpacks. Like that friend who keeps insisting they're going to start a podcast, humanity just won't let this dream die. Meet Yves Rossi, the Swiss pilot known as Jetman. This absolute madman strapped jet engines to wings and decided to become a human fighter plane. He's crossed the English Channel, flown alongside commercial airliners, and generally made physics professors everywhere question their life choices. But here's the catch. Yves doesn't take off from the ground. He gets dropped from a helicopter or jumps out of a plane. It's like calling yourself a race car driver when you only know how to steer downhill with the engine off. Then there's Jetpack Aviation, a company that claims their JB-10 can fly for 10 whole minutes and reach speeds of 62 miles per hour. 10 minutes! That's enough time to fly to the grocery store, realize you forgot your wallet, and crash into a parking meter on the way back. And let's not forget the Martin jetpack from New Zealand, a $150,000 device that looks like a giant fan strapped to a lawn chair. They promised it would revolutionize personal transportation. Instead, It revolutionized the concept of expensive lawn ornaments. $150,000 to $400,000. That's the price you pay for a jetpack. What do you get? 5 to 10 minutes of flight time, noise louder than a rock concert, and a 50% chance your neighbors call the cops before you land. For that price, you could buy a Tesla, a motorcycle, and still have money left to pay someone to carry you on their back while making whoosh noises. Honestly, that option is safer. Even if jetpacks worked, where would you fly them? Cities have strict airspace. Drones here, planes there, helicopters way up high. Add thousands of jetpack commuters, and congratulations, you just made sky traffic. Who gets the right of way? Planes? Drones? Dave from accounting who just figured out how to hover? I don't trust Dave. So if jetpacks are still expensive, dangerous, inefficient, and illegal, why are we still talking about them? Here's where our story gets really interesting. The question isn't why jetpacks don't work. It's why we still want them so desperately. Flying represents the ultimate human freedom. When you're stuck in traffic, staring at the bumper sticker of the car ahead of you that says, "My other car is a jetpack," you're not just fantasizing about transportation. You're dreaming about escaping the constraints of ordinary life. Jetpacks promised us we could leap tall buildings in a single bound, soar above our problems, and arrive at work with our hair perfectly tousled by altitude. They represented a future where personal transportation was as individual as our personalities, where you could literally rise above the crowd. But maybe, just maybe, that's exactly why jetpacks don't exist. Think about it. We already have personal flying vehicles. They're called helicopters and airplanes. But they require licenses, training, maintenance, air traffic control, and a basic understanding that flying is inherently dangerous and complex. Jetpacks, as we imagined them, were supposed to be as easy as driving a car. Strap it on, press go, zoom to Starbucks. No pilot's license, no flight plan, no understanding of aerodynamics required. We wanted the convenience of flight without any of the responsibility. And that's when it hit me. So, why don't we have jetpacks yet? The answer is surprisingly simple. We do have them. They're just exactly what you'd expect when you strap a rocket engine to a human being. Expensive, dangerous, loud, inefficient, and impractical for anything except looking incredibly cool for very short periods of time. But here's the beautiful thing about impossible dreams. They push us to create possible solutions. The technology developed for jetpacks led to advances in materials science, miniaturization, and control systems that helped create everything from better prosthetics to more efficient drones. Those 1960s engineers who promised us jetpacks by 1980, they weren't wrong about the future. They were just wrong about which future we'd choose. Instead of strapping rockets to our backs, we put supercomputers in our pockets. Instead of flying to work individually, we created ride-sharing networks that can move millions of people efficiently. We didn't get the jetpack future because we created something better, a connected, intelligent, automated future where transportation adapts to us, rather than requiring us to become amateur test pilots just to buy groceries. But somewhere, in a garage laboratory or a corporate R&D facility, someone is still working on making jetpacks practical, safe, and affordable. Because that's what humans do. We look at the impossible and say, "Hold my coffee." And maybe, just maybe, that's the most human thing of all. If you enjoyed this dive into another sci-fi dream that failed, smash like, drop a comment, and subscribe to Yet. because the future isn't here yet. But when it finally shows up, we'll be the first to laugh at it.